Yo, what is going on, my dudes? Welcome to another RuneScape news coverage video. For this video, we're going to be covering a design document by ModPie that will remove Bounty Hunter and redistribute the rewards. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video. Let's go! Alright guys, so this is actually part of ModPie's game jam. Before we get into any of this, just note that all of this is subject to change. None of it is actually set in stone, so going forward, keep that in your mind. And the design document for this will be linked down in the description below, so you can check it out for yourself and read it in its entirety down there. So he's going to be removing the Bounty Hunter. Bit of background story, it was one of his passion projects to revitalize PvP. In principle, was a good idea, but in practice, did not pan out that way. Players were selling kills for GP. This led to a system having massive nerfs early on to the emblems, etc. to protect the rewards. Then people realized soon after that there was a lot of control for players to have access to the rewards and made the drop system pretty much a gameable piece of content. As it stands, the content is currently farmed at a lower rate, but mostly with alt accounts and lower level accounts. ModPie feels like this state of Bounty Hunter is completely unacceptable to be left in its current state. So this project's purpose is to remove it entirely and redistribute those rewards elsewhere in the game so that they can be still obtained in a more controlled environment. So how are they going to shut down the worlds themselves? So the worlds that are currently flagged as Bounty Hunter worlds will be unflagged. This will effectively remove Bounty Hunter from the game when those worlds reboot. Pretty standard, pretty straightforward. Now, if you're curious about anybody who does have a Bounty Hunter rating currently, ratings will no longer be obtainable in the game. However, they still will be stored on the player, and players who have already unlocked the Revenant pet will keep the pet that matches their rating at the point Bounty Hunter is removed. Emblems themselves will not be removed. They will instead be awarded by the Wilderness Slayer Master Vigora, which is a new Slayer Master coming with this update that we'll talk about in a moment. So there are going to be two general methods for obtaining the Bounty Hunter rewards. One will be through the new Slayer Master that I just mentioned, that purely focuses on Wilderness Slayer tasks, and the other method will be just through straight up Wilderness content itself. So let's talk about the new Slayer Master Vigora. It will be added to the Slayer Tower. Vigora currently is in his ghostly form already in the game. He can be found in one of three places: the Slayer Tower, Edgeville Dungeon, or the Rogue's Castle. And after this update, he will always be visible in the Slayer Tower, and his placement in the tower will be on the throne on the first floor. His visibility status in the Edgeville Dungeon and Rogue Castle will not change, so he'll still be found there. So Vigora will act exactly like any existing Slayer Master NPC, with the exception that he only assigns monsters that are in the wilderness. If you get a task from Vigora, you will only gain Slayer XP, and your Slayer count will only go down while inside the wilderness. Vigora will offer the same amount of Slayer points as Morvran. Now, one thing that makes Vigora very unique and why you should use Vigora is that the completion of a Slayer task in the wilderness, players will obtain or upgrade a Bounty Hunter emblem. For the emblem to upgrade, it must be on the player throughout the task, otherwise a tier 1 emblem will be obtained. The only new Slayer mob that Vigora will assign, different from any other Slayer Master, is a Revenant task. So as you would imagine, you get this assignment and you will have to go kill Revenants in the Forinthry dungeon. He also has a special task, much like any other Slayer Master, where you'll have to kill all bosses within the wilderness without banking. This probably includes Chaos Elemental, as well as King Black Dragon and probably Corporal Beast, and a new boss encounter that I will talk about later in the video, so stay tuned for that one. There is also a new shortcut to the wilderness when this comes out. There will be a hole made in the wall of the Slayer Tower, which will allow players to jump out through the northwest corner of the Slayer Tower and jump straight into the wilderness. So let's talk about the actual wilderness content and how things are distributed in that regard. First up, there's a new rare drop table that can only be accessed while you're doing activities or killing monsters in the wilderness. So the available locations you'll be able to access this drop table are from Wilderness Slayer mobs, which will scale based on your Slayer level, from rogue pickpocketing, as well as the Muddy Key chest when you open that chest. So the items you can find on this new rare drop table are the Wilderness Hilt, which will be a rare, Adrenaline Crystal, which will be uncommon to rare based on the amount dropped, Preserved Meat, which is a common, Fremenic Upgrade Patch, which is uncommon, Revenant Drop Enhancers, which are rare, the Ancient Warrior Equipment Patch, which is a uber rare, Bloodweed Seeds, which are uncommon to rare based on the amount dropped, and Brawling Gloves, which will be uber rare. Now, this isn't the only way to get all of the items talked about right here, but in the wilderness is the only location where you have access to this drop table that does have these items on there, so don't forget to have that in the back of your mind. So the Wilderness Hilt. If you don't know, this is the item that allows you to upgrade certain dragon weapons to tier 70. This will simply be a rare drop from any Wilderness Slayer monster. The chance to drop this will scale with the NPC's Slayer level. Moving on to the large as well as the small rune pouch. While rune crafting via the Abyss, players can obtain some magical threads. If you attain enough of these threads with the right rune crafting level, you can craft the rune pouch. The rate obtaining these threads would scale with the player's rune crafting level and be boosted using the demonic skull. So a player with a 99 rune crafting will obtain 100 threads in about 8 hours or 6 hours if they're using a demonic skull. The amount of thread required for each pouch is 50 for the small one and requires 55 rune crafting, and the large pouch requires 100 thread at 90 rune crafting. It's important to note that due to the rune crafting levels required to craft these, an Iron Man only level requirement will be added to the pouches. I assume for Iron Man that level will be much lower than these two provided. Moving on to the Adrenaline Crystal. This will be a rare drop from any wilderness monster, and the chance to drop will scale with the NPC's Slayer level. Ancient Warriors equipment patches will be rare dropped from Revenants. It's also important to note for this particular drop, this will not affect the Chaos Elemental drop log. So if you're somebody who's going for that Chaos Elemental title, you will not have to get an Ancient Warriors equipment patch when this launches. Moving on to the Revenant's Pet. Now this will be removed from the shop entirely. Revenants will have a super rare chance to drop a pet item that unlocks the Revenant Imp or upgrades it to the next tier if you have already unlocked that pet. And players who have already unlocked the pet and upgraded it via Bounty Hunter will retain that level of unlock. If you examine the pet, you would display the player's Revenant kill count, but if the player has a Bounty Hunter rating, they can opt in to display that instead. Brawling Gloves. They already exist elsewhere in the game, so there's no need to redistribute these. They're simply just going to remove them from the store. But remember that they still will be an uber rare from the Wilderness Rare Drop table. Moving on to the tier 87 weapons. This is probably the biggest update or biggest change with this update into the wilderness that we're going to see comparative to all the other ones we previously talked about and will talk about in this video. But here is what ModPie has envisioned to distribute these items. So he wants to convert the bandit camp into a repeatable wilderness boss encounter where you can take on the full force of the bandits and the 3 named bandits, Speedy Keith, Black Heather, and Donnie the Lad, which have a chance to drop to tier 87 weapons matching the style of their attack style. All 3 of them will work together and enlist the help of the bandits around them in the most difficult surface world boss the wilderness has seen yet. ModPie says that the restrictions for Iron Man with these weapons will remain, however, he is open to the idea of allowing them have access to it, so I guess you'd have to give your feedback there. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this particular one. I don't really like surface world bosses in the wilderness. Maybe the bandit camp will be considered not wilderness, especially considering that these are level 87 weapons. They're gonna be sought after. I don't like the idea of making PVMers who are prey to PKers, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Again, this is probably the most likely to have changes added to it. Next up, we have the Amulet of the Forsaken. This item is actually being taken off of the wilderness content and is being moved over to the Barrels minigame, so it'll become a super rare that you can get from looting the Barrels chest. I believe that this means that the restrictions for Iron Man will be removed with this, so that means that Iron Man will be able to obtain the Amulet of the Forsaken. Next up, we have a new reward shop item. So a new item will be added that allows players to convert bounty hunter points to deathmatch points at a rate of 10 bounty hunter points for 1 deathmatch point. This allows players a way of obtaining the deathmatch rewards via Wilderness Slayer. That being said, let's actually look at the deathmatch rewards. So while deathmatch is not being changed in any way during this project, since the rewards, such as the small rune pouch, which we've talked about previously, will still be available through regular gameplay. However, some changes changes have still been made to the deathmatch rewards. So the bounty hunter teleport, this is simply removed and they will refund anyone's points who have purchased this. Small rune pouch, I've already talked about this already, will be obtainable through Abyss rune crafting. And finally, we have the Ogre Flask. The Ogre Flask will be updated to be a 6-dose flask when you fill it up, and it can be created by using 10 robust glass, providing you with 1k crafting XP, so the XP per robust glass remains the same whether you choose to make these or just regular potion flasks. Alright guys, that's pretty much all the changes for Bounty Hunter. I don't know when this will come out into the game, but we will see more about it in the Game Jam live stream coming real soon. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet and you want to stay updated on all things RuneScape related, then hit that subscribe button. Anyways, I appreciate you watching. I am out. Peace.